All right, so last week we actually found out that we went black about halfway through. And at first I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it turns out that the majority of our listeners are on YouTube. And so we've been kind of learning this whole thing as we go. And that's actually a really nice segue into today's topic.
Right.
We're talking about the most difficult jump to make in this industry being the restaurant general manager to the district manager, because a lot of the time the quote-unquote training is purely analog, learn by doing. That's it. And to make the problem even worse, the companies that pride themselves on having training programs are simply just making them an RGM on steroids. They're training them to become a multi-unit manager instead of a district manager.
Right. Yeah.
So there's either no training at all, just sort of, do you think this person's ready? Yeah, I think they're ready. All right, let's see if they're ready.
Yeah,
or the training process is focusing too much on the, as you and I have talked about before, the managerial side of things, and that just makes them a multi-unit manager, which is not the same thing as a district manager. Expand on that.
So, leadership gap. Yeah, I mean,
No kidding.
leadership development gap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, you are a really great restaurant manager. You're a high-performing restaurant manager. So we're going to make you a DM, and here's a company vehicle, maybe. Here's a laptop, and here's a list of your restaurants you're going to oversee. Go. That's BS.
Mm-hmm.
That is the worst one. And I've said this to you before. I think a lot of franchisees get caught in this trap of, I have a really great high-performing crew member, I'm going to make him a restaurant manager. Or I'm going to make him, an assistant restaurant manager.
Why do we keep making that mistake?
Because all we see is that they're really good at the job they're currently doing. So then it's like, oh, you're really good at the job you're currently doing, so I'm going to move you up one. And
I think it's partly that.
Yeah.
And I also think it's partly politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because certain concepts, you can't buy more stores unless you have a high enough manager complement.
So you have to have an organizational chart. You can have an org chart. Just make sure you got the right people, the right bodies in the right positions.
But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like so if you have a 100 plus store portfolio, and the corporate side of it might block you from purchasing more locations if the overall average of managers that you have per store, it doesn't meet a certain threshold.
Right. So then we fall as franchisees, we fall into the same trap that our restaurant managers sometimes fall into, and I call it the warm body syndrome. Just get a warm body in the position.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand that trap because, you want a job, here you go. But then what ends up happening over the midterm and the long term is there goes sales and there goes profits, because you do not have the right person in the right seat, to use your quote. Right? Yeah. And I think what ends up happening is that we see someone who's really good as a crew member, and immediately we think they're going to be really good as a manager, and that's not necessarily the case. You can have an average crew member be a phenomenal manager, and you can have a phenomenal crew member be a sucky manager.
Yeah, and I think
and I speak from experience.
Well, but then why does this problem exist when going from an RGM to a DM, where they're either making them into something that they shouldn't be, which is a multi-unit manager,
right.
Or, I mean, honestly, I would rather have the opposite. How I got thrown into the position, I would rather have that. I would rather have learned by doing than be trained to become a multi-unit manager.
So there is a little bit of training is more caught than taught. However, we really, really fall down when we move from restaurant manager to district manager. We have a great, great restaurant manager. We make them a district manager, and they fall back on the things that they did really well, being a restaurant manager. So then they try to be a restaurant manager for a 5, 8, 15 restaurant portfolio, and then they burn out, and they don't have any success. Their managers end up burning out. The AUVs go down in their store. The profits go down in their store because they can't manage. They can't be a restaurant manager of 5 restaurants. You can't.
But you see it happen.
Oh, I see it happen because.
And then what you do is you neuter your RGM.
Right.
Because then he's not even the leader of the store. You are.
So I wrote a headline down here called mindset shift, but I'm going to talk about that. But I just want to talk about the training dollars that we spent at the in-store level versus the training dollars we spent at the above restaurant level. So on average, this is an on average, crew member is between $500 and $1,500 annually. So if you have 20 crew members times $1,500, that's roughly how much you're spending. Shift leader, you're spending between $8,000 to $2,000. Restaurant manager, $2,000 to $8,000. So if you have a complement of 20 people, 25 people, one of them's a restaurant manager, you spent $8,000 on them. Shift leaders, you've got 5 of them, you're spending $2,000 on them. Crew members, you got 20 of them, and you're spending $1,800 on them. 20,000, what is that? $50,000, $60,000 a year annually that you're spending on training. The franchisee and the franchisor is dedicating to training those people. When you move from restaurant manager to district manager, the national average that's being spent on those moving that jump is less than the cost of onboarding. A couple $1,000s. So we're spending $60,000, $70,000 at the restaurant level on training. We're spending maybe a couple $1,000 at the above restaurant level. So we're not teaching them leadership. We're not teaching them the mindset shift. And I think that's a big, and I think then you start promoting great managers to become district managers, and they just end up doing what they did as a restaurant manager, or trying to do what they did as a restaurant manager at the
either by default or design.
Both, yeah.
Either by default or design, because if you don't have training in place, then they're just going to default to being an
RGM, yeah.
Or the companies and concepts that do have quote unquote district manager training just train them into becoming multi-unit managers.
Right.
So you're going to end up in the same place either by default or design.
So
that's a problem.
Exactly. So the mindset shift for me is restaurant manager asks, how do I lead my team today? District manager should be saying, how do I help my managers become better leaders? Senior district managers, how do I develop district managers who build great restaurant managers? Right? Those are the mindset shifts that I don't think we spend enough time talking about to the above restaurant leader.
Well, no, because typically I'm just between you and I, David, and everybody that's listening, I'm done using the term above restaurant leader just because the leader is so few and far between. How many actual leaders? I will. How many actual leaders have I met since coming in this industry?
We'll just use district manager, senior district manager, director of ops. So I think the director of ops mindset shift is, how do I build a leadership system that develop leaders at every level? And those should be the number one questions for a restaurant manager manages employees. A district manager leads managers. That's a simple, to me that's
it's
simple.
So simple.
It's
so simple.
It's a simple difference that changes everything. Restaurant managers coach crew members. They solve problems during shifts. They ensure operational excellence. Deliver great guest experience. That is not the job of a district manager.
No.
You
see that happening. You see district managers operating sometimes 1 to 3
Yeah.
levels down. Like,
Dis-
why is a district manager approving somebody to become a shift lead? That's the RGM's
Yeah.
job.
A district manager should spend far less time on operational matters and problems, and they should spend the vast majority of their time on coaching restaurant managers, developing restaurant managers. If a DM spends every single one of their visits at a store, or the big percentage of their visits to the store are, let me see your schedule, let me show your employee how to make this thing. Let's talk about the SOPs for your store. Let's talk about, the formulas that your people should. That is not the job of a district manager. The job of a district manager is to coach the restaurant managers to become better leaders. It is not the job of the district manager to go in there and make a frickin' sandwich.
No.
Because if that's the case, if like you said, they operate one level down, this is a thing my partner used to say all the time, David, I do not want you working in the stores, because if you work in the stores, I have the highest paid, sandwich maker in the country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I am not paying a district manager, and you know this, I am not paying a district manager to manage a store. Period. Because then I just have the highest paid manager in the store, in the country.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm paying my district managers, close to 6 figures, that's the highest paid restaurant manager in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
But you see it.
Strong leaders don't create followers. They develop more strong leaders.
To me, it was very simple, and you sort of laid the groundwork for me when I got promoted to becoming the RGM at your first store, and then from there, I just it really clicked for me once I made that jump to the DM. Mainly because I think 8 stores is too much for one person, but
eight stores is not too much for one person if they're treated as a true district manager.
Yes, so that was almost the best thing that could have happened to me, because it's like, okay, I can't manage 8 stores at once, but I can manage a district.
Yeah, you can manage the managers. You can't manage, what do you got? If you had 20 people in each store and you've got 8 stores, you can't manage 20 times 8.
160 employees.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
No.
But
you can manage 8 people. You can manage 8 managers. You can lead 8 managers.
Yeah. And so it's just so very simple. So if you're at the store level, the most important person to you is your team.
Right.
And then when you go from RGM to DM, the most important person to you
is the RGM.
Is your RGMs. Yeah. Like it's not that you don't have a relationship with the shift leads and the team members at each of your stores. You don't want that, because then you just become this. Oh, what's the word? Starts with a P.
You just become. Say that again.
If you don't have a relation, I'm not saying that you just completely ignore everybody else in the stores when you're visiting your RGMs. A pariah, that was the word.
So
yeah, because otherwise you're just going to be like this sort of ethereal being that comes in every now and then. It's like, oh well, that's the district manager. Like I'm not saying don't develop relationships with all of the store, but
right.
You are there to serve the RGM. Period. Right? I mean, when I was the district manager, when you were my boss, one of the easiest ways for me to serve my RGMs, they just called me a transfer boy.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So then I would just go around and get them product. But it's like, no, I don't want you to be driving around because you don't have a company car, you don't have a gas card.
Right.
Why the hell would I expect you to go get product? Let me go do that for you, so you can focus on the store.
If you are a district manager, a senior district manager, director of ops, and I'm really big on servant leadership. Your job is to serve the most important person in the company, who is the restaurant manager.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if that ruffles feathers for franchisees and franchisors.
I'm not sorry.
The most important person is the restaurant manager, period.
Done.
Um, you know,
Because when you start to, because if you're a district manager and you start to operate 1 to 3 levels down, well, then you're clearly, by your actions, being demonstrative that the RGM is not the most important person to you. Why? Because you're undermining their authority. By coaching or stepping on their toes, by coaching a shift leader or a team member to do something, you might as well just scream at the RGM, I don't trust you to run this store, so I'm just going to do it for you. Thank you very much.
You know, when I visited stores, you know this, and it's important to have relationships, you talked about this, for a franchisee, a director of ops, whatever, you know, level you are, district manager, senior district manager. I would talk to the crew member. I would never correct the crew member, ever. That was the job of my manager. You know, it's like, hey, how you doing? How's it going? You know, hey, Hunter just told me you had a kid. How's that going? Hey, you got engaged. Congratulations. You know, I just talked about personal stuff. I didn't talk about the business. But if I saw an issue in the store, I called you on the phone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Hey, Hunter, I just visited store 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Mm-hmm.
and this was happening.
Yep.
It wasn't my job to correct it, it's your job to correct it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, and again, you see, this isn't. Again, common sense isn't so common, but you and I have talked about leadership being universal.
Mm-hmm.
I've used this example before on previous episodes. Andy Reid studied Mike Holmgren when Mike Holmgren was the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. When Brett Favre would throw a rocket ball through a wide receiver's hands, he would not go and bitch at Brett Favre. He'd go and bitch at Andy Reid because Andy Reid was the quarterback coach.
Right.
Like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so like it, and that's in the National Football League. Like, so you can see the leadership lateralizes to different industries or even arenas. So it's not
Leadership is universal.
Right.
And we've said that a lot.
Right.
You know, we're talking specifically about leadership in QSR. And to me, you know, the place where we really, really, really fall down is that jump from restaurant manager to district manager, senior district manager, whatever. That is where I think almost all brands, you know, I thought about this a lot when we were talking about topics. And it's like, okay, David, if you think that's where we really fall down, pick 3 QSR brands that you think do it good, that do that jump well. You know, and to be honest, Chick-fil-A, Raising Cane's, and believe it or not, McDonald's.
on the jump from RGM to DM.
Yeah, and believe it or not, McDonald's. Now at the franchisor level, maybe not at the franchisee level, but at the franchisor level, if you look, I mean,
I've only been in the industry for less than
Right.
3 years, but
So-
I've had interactions with several different concepts and franchisees during that time.
so the only
I'm not optimistic.
The reason I say McDonald's is because Hamburger University is like universally the gold standard for training. Every single person at the corporate level has to go through Hamburger University for their level. When a franchisee says, I'm going to promote this person from manager to a district manager, McDonald's does demand that person goes through the Hamburger University training for district managers. So, you know, I know the McDonald's is pretty controversial. Chick-fil-A, phenomenal. They do a phenomenal job with every step up.
But how can they even? But how can there even be a district manager with Chick-fil-A's if they're not letting their owner operators have more than one location?
There are some owner operators that do. Most of them don't. But I'm also looking at like your BDAs, your BCs. By that I mean your business development agent, your business consultant, the person that represents the franchisor to multiple units. The jump from restaurant manager to district manager is the franchisee's responsibility. But Raising Cane's, they are 100% company owned, so they have a really good training program from restaurant manager to district manager because they're company owned. Chick-fil-A has very good developmental training for the franchisee, but they also.
But we're not really talking about corporate.
No, not corporate in general. But I'm just thinking.
And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm sure those companies do have really good training programs, but when it's at the corporate level, I think it's going to default more to managerial than leadership.
But what I'm saying is that
because there's a reason why those concepts aren't franchised for quality control purposes.
But let's talk
emphasis on control.
Yeah, let's talk about corporate level. So corporate level spends a lot of money developing programs for a franchisee to use to train their crew member, to train their assistant manager, to train their restaurant manager. Most brands have those programs in place that the franchisees can tap into.
And it stops at the RGM level.
Very few.
Does not go above it.
Very few franchisors have training in place that a franchisee can tap into when they're promoting someone to a district manager. Almost none of them do.
And the ones that do turn them into multi-unit managers.
Right. And to be honest, most franchisees say, "Oh, you're a great restaurant manager. I'm making you a district manager, and here's a laptop and here's a list of the restaurants you're going to oversee. Go." That's the extent of the training.
And as much of an abortion as that is, in terms of training, I would rather have that, as ghastly as it is, than certain companies who have training programs in place that just help somebody, or not help them, it actually hurts them by becoming a multi-unit manager.
So what I'm saying, though, is we as franchisees need to have a mindset shift.
Right.
That we need to think of our district managers not as MUMs, multi-unit managers, and not as restaurant managers. We need to think of them as the people that are developing restaurant managers. They're developing their restaurant managers into leaders. Their job is not to go in and
look at schedules.
Their job, even to the point that, and I know.
Be in the team's group chats.
Right. If you're a district manager into a whole store group chat, get the hell out of it.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
Get out.
Right.
You can have a separate group chat. So the group chat that a DM has
is their RGMs.
Should just be RGMs. Period. Not even assistants. It should just be RGMs.
Right.
But if you're a district manager and you're in whole store group chats, or if you're a franchisee and you're in whole store group chats, you're hurting your business. You're hurting your team. You are micromanaging. Get out of it now. You shouldn't be in it. You want your people to have a free flow of conversation, and then your RGM will bring to you, because you develop them into a leader, they will say, "Hey, this is an issue that's happening in my store. Do you have any suggestions?"
Yep.
But
you don't need to be privy to every little thing.
You don't need to be privy to it. You shouldn't be privy to it. There's some stuff, because then you're just going to get bogged down. You're going to get bogged down in, this employee who's been there 3 weeks doesn't know how to make a sandwich, and so I'm going to have to go in and show them how, or I'm going to have to come, that's your RGM's job.
You're majoring in the minors.
Yeah, that's your RGM's job. I get really, this is a soapbox of mine, and I get really frustrated with district managers that act like restaurant managers. Your job is to just communicate with your restaurant managers and to develop them into leaders, period. Your job is to make them successful, then they make the store successful. It's not your job to make the store successful. It's your job to make your restaurant manager successful, so they'll make the store successful.
Because then whose success is it when there's quote unquote success? It's not the RGM success. It's your success.
I mean,
That's what I'm talking about. You're
yeah.
neutering
Yeah.
the person that should be running the store.
One of the things I used to tell you a lot, told all of the managers that worked for us, district managers and that kind of thing, it's like, because this is something I see happen a lot in the industry and it really bugs the hell out of me, is that I never told my managers, I never told my district managers, I never told my senior district managers how many hours or what their schedule was, ever. I said, you need to work as many hours as you need to work to get the job done. And the job is to have a successful restaurant, period.
When you promoted me to multi-unit manager, when I went from one store to two, and then you salaried me at the time, and then I remember asking you, I said, how much do you want me to work? And I'm not just saying this to placate him. This is not placation. This is not hyperbole. David looked at me and he said, you need to work as many hours as you need to work to get the job done. Mm-hmm. Done.
Period. I would rather
and
have...
you know what the fucking irony is, David? You know what the fucking irony of the whole thing is? If you actually gave the people the autonomy to work as many hours as they need to get the job done, they'd probably work more hours than you're asking them to work.
That was always the case. Always the case. Because if I had said, okay, you're salaried, you need to work 50 hours a week, they would work. Then instead of getting performance, I was just getting presence. And I'd rather have performance over presence any day of the week, right?
Yeah, and then what you do, if you're putting... Let's say you need to have 100 hours. Let's just, use an arbitrary number. If you need to have 100 hours per pay period, when it comes time to make cuts, you are not cutting yourself. You're cutting the people who you ought to be developing, so the store can run without you. Which is one of the defining characteristics of a good manager, by the way.
Didn't I say that to you all the time? Can the store run without you?
Can the store run without you? Can it be solved tomorrow? Is it a crisis?
Right.
If not, go home or stay home.
I mean, I know, I want to put a caveat on there because I know that there are company policies that say, as a salaried manager, you must work 45 hours a week, you must work 50 hours a week. And I can understand that if that's the company policy, but to me what ends up happening then is address those one-on-one, but if the restaurant is performing and the manager is working 40 hours a week or 38 hours a week and the restaurant's performing, leave well enough alone. Your AUVs are up, your KPIs are all within line, your profits are up, and you are going to go to that manager and say, you only worked 48 hours and the company requires 50. So then the manager goes, okay, that's what's most important is my presence, not my performance. Mm-hmm. My presence is more important than my performance, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then what ends up happening is they work their 50, they're done.
Yes.
They're done.
Yes.
And
you
so,
hit the nail right in the head.
So they work their 50, they're done. KPIs, burnout happens. KPIs start going in the crapper. AUVs go down, profitability goes down.
But even if those things don't happen, you hit it right on the head. So many peers and friends of mine in the industry have said that exactly. I mean, you hit it right in the head there, David. They have said things to me. I do not give one more second of my life to the company after I hit my 50 hours.
Because then
oh wow, yeah, that's what you want. There's culture for you, you fucking morons.
Hey,
that's ridiculous.
But then it becomes about presence. It doesn't come.
And you're using business as a proxy for productivity.
Right. So I would rather say
when there are people who are scratching, clawing, begging for hours, who if you just gave them to them and you went home, they would crush it for you. The horse that wants to race will beat the horse that feels compelled to every single time.
Yeah. That's why I think it's more important to say you need to work as many hours as you need to work to get the job done. Here is the definition of the job.
Right.
Bump, 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 bump.
But
and then I leave well enough alone. If they're performing and they're putting in 38 hours, or they're performing, and they're putting in 42 hours. Great. My sales look great. My profits look great. My KPIs look great. My district managers knew they were doing well the less they saw of me.
Yeah.
It was the ones that needed the coaching that saw me more.
The RGM's job, the DM's job, the SDM jobs, the region's job, the DO's job is to become a culture champion.
Right.
That's what you do at the store level. You just create a culture. Just create the culture. Just make it fun. Balance between circus and morgue, like you say. As you're a DM, create the culture, whatever that is, right? And then serve your DM and serve your RGM, the SDM or the region. Create a culture, serve the DM, and just kind of go on and on and on. Like, stop operating one level down, because you're taking your power. You're taking the person who reports to you's power away. Right. And so, but now I want to talk about how we fix it. Like, so what is the training? What is the training? Because it's not training. Training isn't working. If training worked, then you wouldn't have so many burned out RGMs and or DMs who are really MUMs. So, like, what do you do about that? And it comes down to, in my opinion, a couple of things. I think that you need to get involved, either formally or not, in public speaking. As a leader, you've got to be able to use your words. You've got to be able to communicate, right?
I would say more communication than public speaking, but I understand where you're coming from.
Well, yeah, but I'm obviously partial to public speaking, because it's done a lot for me in my career. But really, when you become better at public speaking, what you're really doing is you're becoming a better storyteller.
Right.
I'm telling you, if you can become a better storyteller, that's gonna make you a better district manager.
Right.
Not like working through somebody's schedule with them. What the fuck?
Yeah.
No.
Why am I going to waste my time?
Because if you can become a better storyteller, let me just hit this one a little bit. If you can become a better storyteller, right? Facts tell, but stories sell. You can then be able to empathize with the RGM, with whatever struggle they are going through. And if you're able to communicate better, then this is a line that I'm taking from the marketing mogul Jay Abraham. If you don't know who the guy is, look him up. He said, if you're able to articulate your prospect, in this case the RGM's, pain in a way that they've never heard before, they will instantly think that you have the solution.
Right.
And you only get that sort of empathy by being able to be articulate, right? And one of the best ways to be articulate, i.e. communicate, is through storytelling.
So you're very good at public speaking and speaking in large groups, and I go back to Hives, self-awareness, right? So I realize there are people that are far better at that than me.
Sidebar, Hives for David is humility, integrity, vision, empathy, and self-awareness. I didn't want people to think that you have Hives. Right. Although David does have Hives.
But anyway, I don't have Hives. I get Hives if I have codeine, Tylenol, aspirin.
Or exposed to micromanaging.
Yeah. But, so I'm really good at the one-on-ones. I'm really good at the small group settings. I'm really good at, and I tell a lot of stories to the point that Hunter will say, David, I've heard this story before. But anyway, right?
True.
But, so I agree with the storytelling side. I agree with the communication side. Recognize your strengths. If your strength is in public speaking to large groups, who in your organization has that strength, and elevate them. We planned a whole big DM and above meeting, right? Mm-hmm. And I had my DMs. Okay, this DM, this is their strength. They're going to talk about this. This DM, this is their strength. They're going to talk about this. This DM, this is theirs. I did not speak hardly at all at that meeting.
No, you had.
But I put it together so that it was digestible, that all the attendees got something out of it. Hey, David is asking one of my compatriots, who's the same level as me, to talk about what they do in terms of, maintenance, or David's having someone talk about what they do in terms of marketing, or David's having this DM talk about catering, right? And then I had you give the keynote, but I'm self-aware enough to say I could have stood up there for the whole, what was it, an 8-hour meeting with lunch? I could have stood up there and talked about every single one of those topics for 8 hours. And it would have been less effective than having you talk about this person talk about this person talk about this.
So
right?
it's the same thing that's happening at the store level, just at a larger level. You're just scaling what works at the store level as a DM. So what do I mean by that? At the store level, create an accountability chart. Okay, this person's going to be in charge of schedule. This person's going to be in charge of cleanliness. This person's going to be in charge of continuing education. This person's going to be in charge of developing service people or food people, right? And so you have this little org chart within the store. You do that at the district level as well. Yep. This person's in charge of catering. This person is in charge of mindset. This person's in charge of a cleanliness initiative, right? It's the same thing.
And you know what happens? You know what happens about that? You take so much stuff off your plate. Because I wasn't getting catering calls. David, I have a question about catering. I have a question about catering. I have a question about catering. They would just call the catering guru.
Yeah.
Who was also, another district manager. So they could talk district manager to district manager. This person excelled at catering. So this did, I have an issue of maintenance and who to call and who do I contact and what should I look at.
They would talk to Jim.
Yeah.
They would just call Jim.
Yeah.
And then Jim would give them some points. Oh, your fountain machine's down. You don't need to call Pepsi. Talk to Jim.
Yeah.
Right. So then what does that do? That also saves some expenses. Oh my gosh! And cutting costs just like making money.
It saved expenses and it took it off my plate.
Right. But then also when you put somebody in the right seat, they're going to excel. Why? Because the horse that loves to race is going to beat the horse that feels compelled to every single time. When they're operating their zone of genius, they're going to show up better. Yeah. They're going to show up better.
Yeah, some franchisees are not going to agree with this, but I'm telling you it's true. Everything you have your RGM be responsible for, they can delegate except for culture. Everything.
Yeah.
You do not need your if they can delegate inventory, they can delegate scheduling, they can delegate ordering, they can delegate training, they can delegate everything but culture. Everything you're right.
The only thing I would put an asterisk on is they can delegate culture to the person that they're looking to replace them.
Sure, that's succession planning, and we can talk about succession planning in another podcast because that's a whole big topic to me. And I'm really, one of the questions I constantly would ask the DMs and my senior DMs, what's your succession plan? Tell me your succession plan. I had to ask that a lot, right?
Yeah, you put it even a little bit more morbidly, but it drove the point home.
Yeah,
drove. Yeah, what's Mack truck? Like Mack, what happens if Hunter? What happens if Tracy gets hit by a Mack truck tomorrow? Yeah. Who's in charge of that store?
Yeah, I always called it the Mack truck syndrome. But I would ask you.
Yeah.
I would ask you, what happens if you get hit by a Mack truck?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what happens if you get hit by a Mack truck, and then they would have to tell me. I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So that's succession planning. That's a big topic.
Because that's as morbid as that is. It's incredibly liberating for the person that you're asking that question to, because in reality, you can have core values like family and all of these things, but the minute that you're dead, they're going to start looking for your replacement the very next day.
Maybe not even the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's happened to me.
Right?
Yeah. I have had, and we could say Mack truck, either someone getting hit by a Mack truck and dying, or someone, or a leader quitting and walking out that very day, So I want to know your succession plan, and I would never say, if you quit and walked out today, who's taking over for you? Because I didn't want to put that into their head. But I would say, if you got hit by a Mack truck.
But that's the thing, David.
Yeah.
Like, people that worked for you didn't quit.
No, they never quit.
Why? Because you left them the fuck alone to do their
they
job.
They never quit.
No. So much so that David would call my cell phone sometimes when I was working for him, and he'd just be like, "Are you working today? Like, where you at? Are you working today?" He wasn't expecting me to be somewhere. He was asking literally, "Are you working today?" Because if you're if you are, where are you at? I'm gonna come talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the day off. Oh, okay, never mind. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
That how many of those calls I got, and I have to believe that played in a big role into the success that I had. Why? Because I knew that David was never up my ass. Like, well, wait a minute, you're not at your store today? What do you mean you're not at your store today? What do you mean you're not at a store today? It's you and your wife's anniversary? What is that supposed to mean?
Right.
Right?
But you know what? But you know what that drives? You know what that drives?
Yeah.
That's why we had such great retention rate.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's also why we had such profitable stores. And it's all, the negative side of it, though, is because we were not a huge franchise and people never left. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to say, "God, this person would make a really good manager. They're a great leader. They're exhibiting hives, yada yada yada." But I don't have a position for them. I mean, the last manager turnover rate I had was 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, you've been with me 15 years. You've been with me 16 years. Well, you're my newest manager. How long have you been with me? 10 years? Oh, okay. So, but because we had that culture, though, we had 2 employees that I can think of at the top of my head that stayed in assistant management positions for 10 years before they became unit managers.
That's incredibly important. You know why? Because I'm not sure if it's an industry-wide thing or just certain concepts. The highest position where you're going to have turnover is at the assistant manager position. Mm-hmm. Because it takes too long for them to become an RGM. So what he just said there should speak volumes. Wait a minute, you've had AGMs for 10 years? Mm-hmm. I mean, that position has the highest turnover because it takes us too long to get them to the RGM. But we're not talking about the AGM to RGM. We're talking about the RGM to the DM. Right. Like what sort of what's missing there? Biggest
jump in our industry is going from a restaurant manager to a district manager. That is it's easier to go from a district manager to a senior district manager, or go from a senior district manager to a director of ops, or to go from a crew member to a shift lead, or a shift lead to an AGM. Those all, there's mindset shifts that have to be made from those. But the biggest mindset shift of all of them is going from a restaurant manager to a district manager.
I think it's just the same thing, just at scale. And so what do I mean by that? When I would go into a new store, I don't start telling people what to do. I'm asking them, "What do you need from me?
Right.
How can I serve?"
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend, because there's no better way to say that. I'm going to come into a store I've never been in before, where you guys have all been here way longer than I, and I'm going to pretend that I know how this operation works. Mm-hmm. No. Right. Let's not get it twisted. You tell me how it works, and you tell me how I can serve you better.
Right.
That's the same conversations that need to be had with your RGMs when you become a DM. How can I serve you guys better? What do you guys need from me? Not, I'm going to put my phone up your asshole, and we're going to look at all of your schedules. We're going to talk. I'm going to be in your group chats. I'm going to approve every promotion that you have at your store.
Mm-hmm. No,
because then it's not their store. It's your store.
My job as a district manager is to coach and lead my restaurant managers to be able to have great restaurants. My job is not to try to make that restaurant great. My job is to make the restaurant manager great.
Because there was some shifting that happened in my district. I think there was like 2 or 3 times before I got promoted with you.
Yep.
And you kind of called me a sword at the time. It was just very...
Tip of the sword.
Yeah, just like, okay, Hunter, this store has a food cost problem, go.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
No.
But this store's got a food cost problem. Can you look into that? And then it doesn't need to be below 30% next week. But I do need to start seeing improvements. Go.
Mm-hmm.
Just go. You would just tell me, you would tell me the what. You wouldn't tell me the implementation or the how.
No, because your how might be better than my how. If I told you, and this is how you're going to do it, A, B, C, D, E, F.
They're not learning.
Yeah,
You don't learn anything from
they're
success.
not going to learn, but they may come up with, hey, David, this is how we're going to solve it. Instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, we're going to go A, E, back to B, then D, then we're going to go to G, come back to A, and I'm like, I can't think like that, but I'm seeing progress. You know, last week this store was 32. This week you're 31.7. Net, you know, then you're on track to be a 31. I'm more, you know,
not
performance versus presence.
Yeah, not checking in with them and following up every day. Hey, your food cost was high yesterday. What happened?
No.
Hey, your speed of service wasn't at company standard yesterday between this time and this time. What happened? Like,
Now,
shut up.
Yeah,
shut up. Like,
I want performance, and that's where I'm going to look at versus anything else.
But it goes back to some of the biggest problems that you and I have talked about several times on my way home from work. I've always said what are the two biggest problems in the world right now: instant gratification and insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Right? Instant gratification. What happened? What happened yesterday? What happened yesterday? What happened yesterday? Instant gratification. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. Do you trust the person? Do you trust the RGM in the store to get it turned around?
And if you don't trust them, replace them.
Or maybe you need to be replaced.
But I mean seriously, you're putting someone in charge. Let's say, you know, I think I said this last week too, but it goes back to it. That person, you put him in charge of a 5 million. You gave him $5 million of your dollars as a franchisee. Here's $5 million of my bucks. Take, you know.
You're paying him 50 to 70 grand, sometimes more.
Right. With bonuses, it could be in the six figures. You don't know.
Yeah.
So, and you have poured into them, you have coached them, you have given them, you know, as much resources as you can. Leave them alone, let them do the job.
You'd be amazed what the lengths people will go for you if you just leave them the hell alone. People just want to be left alone.
I'll share this. Here's a story. I've told you this before.
It's like corporate communism. Just leave them the hell alone.
Had a girl that worked for us.
Corporate communism.
Had a girl that worked for us. Phenomenal. She went to a different brand. She had an interview at the other brand. And then after her interview, she shared, I think you too, but she shared with me, I said, well, what kind of questions? She called me on the phone, David, I just had an interview. And, I mean, I still get those kind of phone calls. But, and I said, well, what did they ask you? And she said, well, I told them that I really liked working for you and that that you were, you know, selling your locations and moving. And she said, but David is someone who that, if he killed someone, I'd bury the bodies, no question asked. Remember
Right.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
How'd that make you feel?
It made me feel good. It was a little morbid, but it made me feel good.
Yeah. So what do we do about it? What do we do about it?
Franchisees need to take and franchisors need to take a very serious look. If you're a franchisor, if you're a brand, if you're in charge of a brand, if you're in charge of training of a brand, if you're head of HR of a brand, you need to take a serious look at the training that's available for franchisees to access for that jump from restaurant manager to district manager. Take a hard look at what you're offering the franchisee to be able to train district managers. If you're a franchisee, don't automatically assume because you have a great restaurant manager that they're going to be a great district manager. And then sit down and have some serious conversations with them about what the mindset shift is. Your job now, as a restaurant manager, your job was to manage employees.
Mm-hmm.
Your job now is not to manage employees.
And it ain't to be making food.
No. Your job now is to take, if you got 5, if you got 8, if you got 10, your job now is to focus on those managers so that they can have good restaurants.
And
It's not your job to make a restaurant good. It's your job to make a manager good so they can make the restaurant good.
Yeah. And if you want to fast track this, if you're listening and you, because we all know the red tape and the hurdles that you might have to jump and
Right.
go through in order to see some of these changes that you want to happen in your company or concept, it takes time. If you want to fast track it, here's what you need to do. You need to download the Fast Food Fast Track Playbook, and we'll put it in the show notes here on how you can flip a store through a leadership approach in just 28 days. And if you want to take it the next step, David and I are available for manager mentorship, for lack of a better word.
And district manager mentorship.
Absolutely.
I mean, district managers need more mentoring than restaurant managers.
Shoot us an email. And again, the easiest way to get in contact is just downloading that free resource. You're going to get a throughput calculator that I actually just went over today with Dave's Hot Chicken.
Yeah, can I put a couple of plugs in here? So right now, Hunter's got some clients that he is mentoring from the restaurant manager to the district manager position. So that franchisee recognized the value and the critical nature of mentoring someone to district manager. So, we've got a little bit of experience in this. Yeah, I've mentored a lot of people to district manager.
A little bit, a lot of it.
The other, I have a separate, totally off-topic plug that I want to, but that's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was going to say a little bit of experience. I said a little bit of experience,
Okay.
a lot of bit of experience.
I mean, I just had someone who's gone to another brand. I went and visited him last week.
Yeah.
And mentored him. I spent a lot of time mentoring him from restaurant manager to district manager. And now he's having great success. I mean, he's having phenomenal success. But the thing I want to say that's separate topic is Happy 4th of July. Quote Psalms on this is that the nation that makes their God the Lord will be successful.
Boom.
That's it.
That's it. Download that Fast Food Fast Track Playbook. You're going to get a free throughput calculator in there that's going to show how much money you're leaving on the table if you are not putting throughput at top of mind. It'll also make your job a little bit easier. You'll turn into a sprinter instead of a marathon runner, and you won't get burned out as quickly. You're going to get a full case study. You're going to get an entire video walkthrough. And like I said, if you want to take the next steps, it's all in there for you to take the next steps with David and I. And if you need more help on the leadership aspect of it to stop sabotaging your operation and perhaps yourself, grab a copy of my book, The Way Out of Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery. You can get that at huntercharneski.com along with the Fast Food Fast Track Playbook. I think that's all we got.
That's it. Happy 4th of July.
All right, everybody. Talk to you next time.